So our next one is around music. This has been kind of a common discussion recently. I've seen in a variety of different places where wedding DJs, and we get accused of, because I'm primarily a wedding DJ, we get accused of playing the same 20 songs all the time. You know, if you followed the crate hacker world, they're like, don't be the DJ who plays the YMCA and whatever, the brick house and, whatever other things. That you need more variety to your music and you need to be more responsive. The question or the thought that people were asking is that most of our couples are in their early 20s, which puts them back in their party time, or in essence, the time when they would have been going out, which is now, or in their teen years would have been in the 2015, 2010 on up. And yet most wedding DJs play very little music from that era. And the question that they had presented in this one was, are we doing a disservice to our couples by not utilizing newer music when it comes to weddings? And what are your guys' thoughts on that? Dan, why don't you start us off there, if you could, please?
Sure. So I will say that I don't fall into that category. First off, most of my couples end up probably being in their late 20s to early 30s. So we're still talking like mid 2000s, mid to end 2000s. So I like to work in the new tracks, but the key is you really have to have just a small flavoring of it, because what I'm noticing is you still have, the older friends, you still have, the parents and you still have some other generations that you have to account for. So you can't just go, super new for a large period of time. But again, hitting those teen years and figuring out the songs that are in there, if you're doing that, awesome. And if you're not, you should be. Like that I think is where that's where the stereotype comes from, is there's too many people that are ignoring that music programming piece across the board. Like they haven't ever done it. It's not that, it's just, they go, well, this meets the national request list, so that's what I'm going to use. That may not be your couple.
Very true. Cubbie, what do you think?
In my consultations, we talk music and we talk how we are going to play the fun, safe, happy stuff until about 9:30, and then about 9:30 we're going to drop a beat and kind of get dirty. That's times that your aunts and uncles are, they've had a good time, they play, and during up until that time, I play the Brunos, the Taylor Swifts, some of the very popular, universally popular songs. But about 9:30, 10 o'clock, because once again, we're generally closing about 11. Aunts and uncles generally leave 9 or 10. They don't stay there unless they're on cleanup crew. But I'll drop a rock set late in the evening, a little AC/DC, Bon Jovi, and I guess the aunts and uncles right back out there. And then your guests are probably, so I don't know. I do back and forth. But I do try to stay with the newer ones somewhat. Like the Dua Lipa's, Levitating, and I haven't had one hit yet this year that I haven't got one anybody got one that's been working really, like a really super new one that's been working this year?
I haven't playing yet.
And that's the thing is, in some of the chats where they've been making that conversation go, somebody throws out a name of a track and it's like, okay, so it has not hit. That track didn't hit on any charts. It might be their favorite song or whatever, but it didn't make it on the streaming charts. It didn't make it on the Billboard charts, and that doesn't mean that it isn't a decent song, but it also needs to have a level of crowd recognition. And I think here's where our problem is that we think we got to be playing new music because there should be hot new music. It's popular, whatever. But the common, we want to have music that the majority of the people in a room know, so they can all engage, because that's the part. If they just wanted to go listen to new music, they could go put their headphones on and do it there. They're at this dance because they want to go out there and have a shared experience with everyone that's there. And they want to be able to go out there and sing along to a song that they know, which is probably the Backstreet Boys, as an example, that they know that song and they can sing along to it. They will know the things from the early 2000s and back to the 90s and 80s. Maybe 70s, it could be starting to get, as we go beyond that, you're probably going to get a little sketchier because parents may not have been into that when they were raising those kids. But the idea is that wedding dances, the successful wedding dances generally are ones where people are having that shared experience on the dance floor. and they're having that moment, whether it's a sing-along moment, whether it's a follow me dance, or whether it's just watching, Uncle Fred do his worm across the dance floor. They're not going to do some of those things if we're playing a new song that only the people who listen to this channel of this streaming service know about. It's a great song, and that group of people love it, but there's only 2 of those people in my room right now, and they both love that song, but they are the only ones who would know it. And over here, these people listen to a different streaming service, and they know a lot of great songs. They're really into that type of music. Maybe it's we're over here, we get the 2 people who are into the top 40 stuff and that, and over here we've got the people who are into the new EDM, and these people are into the new, whatever, the urban side. They don't have the shared experiences like they would have had from 10 to 15 to 20 years ago. And that becomes a stumbling block, I feel, when it comes to playing newer music.
I would say this, though. If you have some of your mainstream artists, the ones that cross over, so you're not talking about something that's super urban, but yet has that feel and crosses over into the top 40, I think there's a lot more there than you might realize. And in the chat, some people were dropping things like, I'm good. You had, what was the other one that I saw there, man? Players, which I haven't done for a wedding yet. Just haven't had a wedding since that song came out. There's a bunch of songs that are there. Last year, Nicki Minaj, I was playing Super Freaky Girl, probably like 2 weeks after it came out, and was getting a lot of sing-along on it. Mm-hmm. So I think you can obviously hit that new, but I think it's being wise to the feel, the vibe, and the mainstream piece, crossover piece, top 40 piece, however you want to look at it, that allows it to appeal to a wider variety. Now, of course, that song, aunts and uncles are thinking they're dancing to Rick James. People, maybe that's the grandparents, thinking they're dancing to Rick James, and the aunts and uncles are thinking they're dancing to MC Hammer. But it didn't matter. It was something that worked and allowed you to kind of grab. And again, had a lot of that sing along that you could get away with. I don't know if I'd do Super Freaky Girl early, but you could still do early with some of those newer pieces. Again, looking for that commonality part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely there are songs out there that can fit into that category. It's just, it isn't a for sureable thing where everybody knew Uptown Funk pretty much. I mean, that was one of those moments. And there will be more of those moments, don't get me wrong. But it's just not as, we could usually count back in the 10, 15 years ago, you could have gone to the Billboard charts and you could look at the top 20 and you knew there were probably 2 or 3 songs in there that were going to hit, or that were going to be decent songs that you could use at your event, whether it was a high school event or a wedding. It's like, yeah, there's a couple of songs in here I could use. Now, maybe not so much, just because of the diversity that's out there.
So one thing that I would, while we're on the idea of pop or music and stuff, one of the things that I would encourage you to do, if you have Sirius XM, I mean, in fact, I think if you have the radio, this is a free channel that they offer. It's the Hits One channel. There's a show, Hits Bound or something like that. Don't necessarily grab the tracks that you're hearing there, but those are the tracks that are starting to get some traction. Mm. If you can get on them that early and start to kind of analyze them, then when you hear them come around, you're going to be a little bit better prepared for them to be there. I was doing a lot of driving this weekend and listened to the show 2 different times because it just gets repeated. And there's like 3 tracks. I instantly was like, I just had my phone, I camera shot just so I could see exactly what it was and tracked them. Am I going to play him at my wedding, next weekend? No. But the one that I have at the end of May, if they're still getting some traction by that point, you better believe it. You better believe it. Mm-hmm. So just a ways to kind of, I look for stuff like that more than I look for the streaming charts, because I just feel the streaming charts are too influenced by somebody who's not my ideal client. Mm-hmm. Somebody that's not going to be at my wedding.
Very much so.
Are making some big impacts, for my weddings. Mm-hmm. Other events, different story.
Yeah, many of the streaming charts are dominated by the 13 to 15-year-old, the 12 to 14-year-old, whatever. That's a big percentage of the users of some of those streaming charts or those streaming services. All right, gentlemen, let's jump to our next question here.